if you can tie this whole story together, it's the same feeling that I had when I was 16 years old and fell in love with God. It's the same feeling that I had, backstage at Mission One. The same feeling that I had when we did all of these amazing trips. It's a love for Christ and a love for the things that Christ loves, which is people. I remember being this sort of commando secret group of servants that would go and serve at various events. That's the connection to Charity Cup.
Yeah.
Because it is that perspective of serving made the connection to probably Charity Cup, which was on the East Coast. Most of my contribution in Mission One was not musically. I cared a great deal about people, and I wanted to inspire as many people as I can to come and serve. And I did that mostly by serving myself. It was cool how you and Hadan officially invited us with letters, It made the call a commission. Boom. The clarity and the finality of that moment was beautiful. Having been on stage and off of stage, I could tell you that in our mind, the setup, the teardown, being on stage, being off stage was all the same. It is through Charity Cup that I found my wife. So that's cool. And so many people can say the same thing. The best relationships in my life are rooted into that.
I definitely remember, like, Bora, not like that. You gotta put more passion and let people feel the gravity of the moment. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Making Your Life Count. I'm really excited about this episode with my guest. But before I introduce him, I just want to remind the audience, this is a podcast produced by Charity Cup. The name of the podcast is the motto of Charity Cup, Make Your Life Count. And what we like to feature on this podcast is people that embody that, making their life count. And we believe the best way to make your life count is by investing in God and people, because those are the two things that are eternal. God, obviously, and people's souls. That's why at Charity Cup, we encourage people to invest in that. We want to feature some of those stories. So without any further ado, my guest today is a friend of mine. Has also been part of Charity Cup for a long time, but has also been accomplished in many other ways besides Charity Cup. He's sort of not a typical maybe person you think that would be on the podcast. Maybe a lot of people will think, oh, I'm going to interview a lot of pastors and missionaries, which I do. However, at Charity Cup, we really believe in people using their talents and gifts for God's glory wherever they're at, and then in the middle of all that, putting God first and always having an eternal perspective. And I think this gentleman today embodies that in a great way. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Catalin Iuga. Hi, Kat. How are you?
Hello. That was such a good intro that I feel like we've said everything that needs to be said. We can just end it now. I don't know if there's anything else to be said.
A lot of people say I do a great job with the intros.
You just went through the main core ideas,
So I prepare really well for these, so then I kind of know. In this case, I didn't have to prepare that well because I know you very well. We're very good friends. So just in all kind of transparency to the audience, but at the same time, I'm very fortunate to have friends that I believe have accomplished a lot, that are encouragement for me and have been involved in this ministry for a long time, and just in ministry in general. And that's what I think is wonderful. So Kat, if you would kind of tell us just a little bit of where you're at right now, where we're meeting from.
Yeah. So first, let me say that what qualifies me to be on this podcast is all this gray hair over here. Pretty much, that's my accomplishment. I am in Raleigh, North Carolina, sitting in my home office.
Awesome. Yeah, so if that's the qualification, we can have a lot of people on this podcast. There's a lot of people with gray hairs. They're grayer than yours.
Well, not everyone knows you, so I'm the lucky one. What can I say?
Let me process that. Anyway, a lot of friendly jiving here because that's how Ken and I interact many times, and that's what makes it fun. But to kind of get things going a little bit, Kat, as I mentioned maybe to you before this, what I like to do is maybe kind of mention a few of the accomplishments that you've had, and then kind of go back from the very beginning. Would you mind if I summarize that, or just briefly?
Okay. Okay.
All right, my friend Kat Yuga not only has been part of Charity Cup from the very beginning, essentially as a founding member, but prior to that, I believe something we'll talk about briefly. He had a very accomplished career in playing tennis in high school. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then he moved on to uh, getting part in the kind of getting into the ministry. If you've heard of Mission One, which was and is a big part of the Romanian American ethos for young people. So he was very involved in that, and especially at the founding member of that. And then eventually became part of Charity Cup. And he's part of the board at the moment. He has also been leading many of the events and been part of Charity Cup from the very beginning, essentially. On sort of on a professional basis, he's a very accomplished gentleman. He's had some successful exits, which now people can say in the millions, let's say. But I'll let him jump into that as we dive into the discussion. Um, so that's where we're at today. I believe today you're also working on a startup, right?
Yeah.
Uh, very successful, I might say. So, but with all that, I believe he's a gentleman that's sort of always held making his life count as a priority and investing in others and investing in things that last eternally. And that's why I wanted to bring Kat on the podcast. Kat, did I cover? He's married, has 4 kids, wonderful kids. I wanted to invite Feli on the podcast, but maybe that's another discussion. Feli's his wife. Kat, if you have anything else to add to that resume that I might have missed.
Uh, Probably one of my greatest accomplishments is marrying up, fooling my wife into marrying me. It's probably my best accomplishment.
That's awesome. I wouldn't fight you on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Feli's an awesome. I know her. She's awesome. She's also been part of the ministry for a long time and understands and supports you. I
Yeah.
believe in that. So,
We are celebrating 20 years this year. In fact, in about a month.
and as I got to have my own kids and family, that's no small feat. So,
Yeah.
congratulations. That's a huge part of.
20 20 years later, 4 kids later, here we are, considering one of my best accomplishments in marrying Feli.
That's awesome. So, Kat, one other thing that maybe the audience, I think a lot of the audience will already know you, but there's some that may not know you. I want you guys to know that if this is going to be a very friendly conversation, it's because we're very familiar with each other. But that's not the only reason why I invited Kat on the podcast. I really think he had a lot to learn from him and could inspire a lot of people. But I want to let you guys know that another feature that I didn't really mention, sort of this long resume, which I think is also very, very valuable. Kat has always been a person in my life that always knew how to encourage me in many ways and sort of brought out the best in people and celebrated with them their accomplishments. And in some ways, not a lot of people know how to do that, and I really value that. I think he also, Kat, he's one of these guys that if you have a problem and talk to him, he's going to take it really seriously and really try to dive deep and try to help. These like he tries to get to the matter of the center of the matter, and I think that's a unique characteristic as well.
Yeah, yeah. I've had many conversations where we ended up uh, highly emotional to the point of crying as we uncover layer by layer the heart of an issue. So yeah, I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, definitely, and you do it very well. Probably one of the best I've seen. So, awesome,
Get ready to cry, Bora.
huh?
Get ready to cry, bro.
No crying here. I got my
Who's
my Kleenex right
interviewing
here.
who here? Okay.
No crying. We can laugh. No crying.
Okay, sounds good.
Um, all right, Kat. So, um, before we sort of get back into sort of the resume, if you would, if you can kind of help us understand who Kat is and where the journey started, I guess, for you. I know you're from Eucharist. If you want to just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Uh, one of four kids. Got another brother, two sisters. Grew up in a Christian family. Lovely parents, both mom and dad. Still alive, living in that area. Uh, I've been. It's been instilled in me since a very early age that you should build your entire life around church. And there's only two rules that you get to skip church for. You're either really sick or you're out of town. Other than that, we go to church, period, with 100% consistency. And I think early on, I've learned this idea that all of life is really built around this hub, which is the local church, God's people. So my parents, my dad especially, has instilled this idea in my head early on. And I believe by the grace of God, uh, his wish for our lives, and now my wish for my kids, sort of have also to do this for my kids. And whatever he wanted for our lives, God blessed us with. And I think is in large part from this teaching to build your life around church life. So your friends, your first crush when you're a teenager, let it be at church. Your first breakup, let it be at church. Your first set of lifelong friends, let it be from church. Your decisions around college and career, let it be with people at church. You can see now how church life is the center uh of all of our life. So that's how I grew up. Of course, there came a time in my life as soon as we came to the US. So I was born in Romania, came to the US when I was 14. And within a few days of coming to United States, there was a big earthquake here in the area, here in LA. I've never experienced an earthquake before. And I've read about earthquakes in my geography class, but I've never experienced one before. And when I experienced one on a Saturday night, whew, that was rough. Very, very scary. The most unnatural experience, I guess, as a human, feeling the ground underneath you shake. Next day, Sunday morning, Fratele Dobra, John's dad, meets me at church in the hallway, pushes me up against the wall a little bit, and looks up at me. He was a little shorter than me. I was really tall. And he's like, Kat, if there's another earthquake happening, where are you going to go? And you die, and where are you going to go? And I said, well, I'm going to go to heaven, and he's like, why? Well, because I've been to church all my life. I don't cuss. I don't lie or cheat or whatever. He says, no, that's not why you're going to go to heaven. You're going to go to heaven because of what Christ has done for you, having nothing to do with what you have done. Christ dying on the cross and and uh, and loving you. That's why you're going to go to heaven. And then he asked me, do you want to accept Christ in your life? And then I said yes for the first time when I was 14. So John's dad is the brother that first put me face to face with my eternal decision.
I assume John knows this.
John knows this, and also Fratele Dobra knows this. I've talked to him about it many times.
Ken, I want to just pause for and kind of interrupt for a second because this is a reoccurring fact as I interview a lot of different people, especially here in the U.S. And I think you're rightly so pointed out. The beginning really is the parents. who, the people that I've talked to and I'm talking to are very accomplished, but a lot of them bring it back to the parents, and I think rightly so. And this is a topic for another discussion, but I think we should really highlight that. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool how it comes back full circle, because you don't really fully understand these things until you have kids your own, and then you can begin to make some very powerful connections between what you are as a parent, because you begin now to think about, well, how can I help my kids? And then you see it all. Oh, yeah, that's why. Oh, yeah, I see my dad. Oh, I see, and make all these connections. It's it's beautiful the way that works. Anyways, so that's how I started. That's how my real, I guess, authentic walk with Christ started. Being scared into it at the possibility of being another, being in another earthquake and dying. Um, and then of course, teenage years happened with ups and downs. Maybe more downs than ups at the beginning, and then maybe more ups than downs later on.
Mm-hmm.
I went to college. I generally speaking, um, during early school days and high school and maybe early college, I was a fairly poor student in terms of grades. Um, and anyways, there's a whole story behind that too. But yeah, so I went to college and did not live life in a way that I was proud of and really aligns with um, good good Christian values, and then I thought I was broken forever, and then God said, "No, I can restore you. Um, I can restore you full, and then more." So then I experienced God's grace in a way, really through my dad, who also showed me the same grace, and through my dad's grace, I saw real God's real grace in my life, and then I think I wised up during through that experience, and then began to ask the question: well, if God's grace is so apparent and so beautiful and so healing in my life, what about other people's lives? What are other people going through? I found in myself this maybe judgmental um, attitude that I had toward people that did not live like I lived when I was going to church, And then I realized that God's grace, as it was over my life, is also available for other people. So that was a kind of a turning point in my view toward people. Then I started reading C.S. Lewis, and then all the switches started turning in my head.
Brother
So
Lewis.
having experienced God's grace in my life personally, and then begin to see people differently because of that, pairing that with some of C.S. Lewis works that I can get to, that I can get into if you want, really started turning up light bulbs in my head about what life is all about. That's really laying the foundation of how I got into ministry.
Okay. So before we get to that part, real quick, I wanted to. So I believe when you get to California, the church you're going to was Bethel, Daniel Bronze, where he's the pastor, Brother Daniel.
Yeah. Bethel Baptist is uh, Pastor Daniel is my pastor, and he will continue to be my pastor. Although I'm not in California anymore and attend his church on a weekly basis, I feel like he has had such a profound impact in my life that he is forever my pastor. On this life, my real pastor is in heaven.
Yeah, amen. I would love, or I'd love to talk to Pastor Daniel, and hopefully in the future, because he's had a huge impact on a lot of young people. I know a lot of people from California. But anyway, before we, so that was the church you kind of grew up in.
Yeah.
Um, So C.S. Lewis was also sort of a big part of your life as far as the spiritual life. What maybe just a quick, what was your favorite book that you'd say had the biggest impact on you from C.S. Lewis?
So I believe I read all of his works, both fiction and nonfiction. I would say um, Mere Christianity, Screwtape Letters, Weight of Glory, and all of the uh, Narnia books. The Chronicles of Narnia.
But
More
the number one
specifically,
sort
I had.
of is it Mere
Well,
Christianity?
there's a specific passage in Weight of Glory, and correlated in Mere Christianity and in Screwtape Letters that has the same idea, and that idea is around the value of people. And um, there is there's this line that C.S. Lewis says, "There are no ordinary people," which again fell into fertile ground in my heart when I read it first, because when you the way C.S. Lewis talks about it, if I remember, is um, human institutions like governments and schools and so on, they pass away, but humans, they don't. They have a beginning, but they have no end.
Hmm.
And because of that, if you extrapolate out the value of a human being, the greatness or the horror of a human being extrapolated over eternity, then there are no ordinary people. We have never interacted or met an ordinary person, because every person, in one sense or another, is either the most majestic creature that you would be tempted to worship if you saw it in full, or the most horrific creature that you would only see in nightmares. And that is extrapolating the value of a person over eternity. And the way C.S. Lewis talks about it is we are helping each other every day become one or the other, and we end up, you know, doing life with people. We end up, marrying these people. We end up doing business with these people. We end up being friends with these people, and there are no ordinary people. The value of humans, and the value of each of these, of each person is um, is valuable enough that Christ went to the cross to save them. So if Christ saw them that valuable, then that had a profound impact in my life. First of all, understanding my own value in Christ's eyes, and then beginning to see other people with the same, you know, the same lens. And then my whole life sort of I started living my life according to that idea. So then every interaction that I had with someone, I had this in the back of my mind. I am going to do everything I can right now in this moment as you stand before me to help you become this glorious creature just a little bit more. Someone needs help. Okay, well, it's not just some mere mortal, ordinary person that's asking for help. It's this amazing, glorious creature that God has died for on the cross, and now this interaction becomes the most important thing that is now presented to my senses, and I'm going to give it all.
So essentially, wow, that's quite a sort of foundation that you laid from this book. And some of the ideas that you just mentioned kind of tie into this podcast and really into the name, Make Your Life Count, because that's exactly the idea here. We To make your life count, you should invest in things that last forever. And as you mentioned, only souls of people last forever, right? These creatures that
Yeah,
you mentioned are eternal.
yeah.
So that's interesting. That is very interesting. The way you explained it yeah, and that's your gift, man. I have already told you that always, or if I didn't, that is an amazing gift.
I am um I've read this passage from C.S. Lewis book 100 times, so I'm recalling a lot of the words that I got from C.S. Lewis, but it is a foundational principle to my life. And of
Amen.
course it's anchored ultimately it's anchored in in Christ's sacrifice on the cross, right? Because this idea uh, really has meaning in Christ's sacrifice at the cross,
Yeah.
because it is his death, his purposeful, chosen, willing submission to go die that really gives, like, the value he placed on each one of us by choosing willfully and purposefully to go and do that, lay down his glory in perfect fellowship with the Father, to come down. He did that because he saw a value in his people, in his sons and daughters, in his family, that is hard to describe. And these words from C.S. Lewis do a pretty good job trying to describe that, but it is really anchored on the value that Christ has put on his people, that it comes from. And of course, having fully experienced that, coming out of college and some troubled years in college, I was blown away by that. There was a professor in college, a religion professor, who was Jehovah's Witness, and he challenged the deity of Christ, as Jehovah's Witnesses, would. And I went to about 3-4 weeks of wondering about Christ's deity, and through a lot of reading uh, from many great books, and C.S. Lewis, I've once again come to this idea that the value of Christ's love and sacrifice comes from God, from Christ being God, and from him going to the cross to die so he can redeem his people.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. I don't want to get preachy, but these things are personal to what I'm saying, and they are the foundation of
Yeah.
of my perspective.
Yeah. No, no, that's awesome. And I kind of, I feel that. Um, I wanted to also sort of in this chapter of your life, if you would, as you're getting sort of laying the foundation, I believe you also got into sports.
It wasn't a big deal. I
Well,
played good tennis in high school. I enjoyed it. Couple of trophies, couple of mentions in newspapers and stuff, but that's it.
okay.
There's not much there other than me trying to probably gain approval from my dad, who loved tennis. I would probably chalk it up to that.
Well, that's cool. But tell us a little bit, at what level did you end up playing? Because I think it's interesting.
I mean, I just played high school, and I ended up doing a good job
What'd you
playing in
get
high
the
school.
trophies for? What were the trophies for?
Winning a couple of championships. It's really not you know it's really not a big deal. The 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 coolest thing about maybe even a cooler thing about high school is singing in this exclusive mini choir and traveling the world uh, with this little choir. That was remarkable,
Is
because
that from school or from church?
yeah. It was a what um, 12 12-member choir, sort of the elite choir at the in high school. And we went to Hawaii, to New York,
I didn't know about that.
and
That's
yeah,
interesting.
and we just came from Romania. We didn't have money, um, and I wanted to sing, so I went and tried out, and I fit in as a tenor, but I didn't have money to do all this travel. So the school, especially the choir director, helped raise money, so I can go travel with this group. And I remember the older couple that met me at the bus as I'm about to load up the bus to start going to the airport to go fly. They came, and as I'm loading the bus, the choir director comes and tells me, "Hey, these are the donors that helped fund your trip. And I remember talking to them, and they were saying that they were moved by my testimony to the choir director about who I am, why I want to sing. And they're like, yeah, we want to, pay for this young man to go travel with the team.
So, so you're a refugee essentially coming to the U.S.
I, I was, but I had a good testimony because of that.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that, Kat. But that probably ties into maybe future what we're going to talk about soon. But Kat, I do want to press you on this. So I'm into tennis. I played a little bit of tennis with you here and there. So you don't want to tell us? I'll just say it. I mean, you obviously reached pretty far up in California, right? And as far as I believe states for high school, and
In
California is a
in
big state, and to
in
get
in in Southern California, not in the state.
Okay,
So yeah, which
okay,
is
Southern California is like a
pretty
small
pretty
country.
big area. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I played tennis. From what I remember, uh I was the sixth seeded player in Southern California, but I don't remember for sure.
So
It
number six in that region or in all of
Yeah,
California?
no, in Southern California. In my public school league, I guess.
Yeah, but that's quite a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Needless to say, I mean, he obviously
I
won some
played club
trophies as
too.
well.
During summer. I had fun with it. I had a wicked serve. I think I was one of the few students that could hit nearly 100-mile serve back. Back in the day, that was a big deal. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
So
wicked serve and wicked forehand.
yeah, did you ever? So just to lay it out, so you made it pretty far in California, which has a big pool of players. That's why it's a big deal. It's not like Maine or something where there's like 50 people in that state. It's a big pool of players. It's like a small country essentially, and you made it pretty far if you were number six. Um, Kat, did you ever have any dreams of pursuing that as a career?
No, not really.
College?
No, I don't think I was good enough to play college, and that was just fun for my high school. I
Okay.
didn't I
So
didn't
yeah,
have any big aspirations for that.
yeah. I didn't know your dad was into tennis. That's definitely a new breaking news. I didn't know that was part of the reason why you kind of pursued tennis, but that's really
Yeah,
cool.
my dad built a tennis net when we were kids in Romania of potato sacks. So the potato sacks, this bag that was in was this net, this orange net, and he bought a bunch of potato sacks with full of potatoes. He emptied them out, and then and then he attached all these nets, all these bags together to make up a tennis net, and then went to the back of our building and with some chalk and made a little dirt court that we played at as a kid.
Yeah, interesting. You sound like those Brazilian soccer players that end up playing in their backyard, in sand, barefoot, and then they make it to the pros.
Yeah,
That's a cool
yeah,
story. I didn't know about the potato sacks.
yeah.
That's really cool. So you're saying when you got to the U.S., you had a little bit of back knowledge of tennis.
Um, the way really I started playing is every time I would go home, I would take the back way to jump a fence because my apartment was right behind the school. In order to go home, I would always pass in between these tennis courts. And then one day, as I, uh, you know, as I was walking between these courts, I'm like, hey, why don't I play? I know how to play a little bit, and that's with
That's
my
in the
broken
U.S. or in
English.
Romania?
Uh, in the U.S.
In
in
the
my high
U.S.
school, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would walk in between these tennis courts to go to the back fence so I can jump it to go home. And as I'm walking through, every day walking back and forth between these tennis courts, I don't know, just felt an attraction to it, and he's like, "Hey, I know how to play a little bit." And then I went and asked Coach Nick, with my broken English if I can play. And he's like, come on, let's go play.
Were you an immediate sort of success on the team? Because obviously
No.
you were one of the star players. You must have been at that ranking. Were you the best in that team in that high school?
No, there were others that were as good or better. Coach Nick was very good.
Okay, but so are you saying your school was pretty well ranked for tennis? Because
Yeah,
I mean, if you were
yeah.
seated number 6, how many people could have been ahead of you on the team?
I mean, um, yeah, I don't remember. It was 30 many years ago, so it's just a vague memory of it.
So you were playing high school. At what point did you sort of start getting involved in maybe church and I don't know, started taking church more seriously or ministry? Or I guess what I want to jump into is maybe how I got to know you guys. You, and by that I mean a big team of other people. Mission One
Yeah,
is I'm talking
yeah,
about. Is there sort of story leading to that, or should we jump right into that?
yeah. I fell in love with God when I was 16 years old. Hard. I fell in love with God. I was listening to Fratzi Groza, this song, Poke Shetomule. And I remember in my little Sony cassette player, just hitting rewind, play, rewind, play, rewind, playing, just constantly for hours and hours, and crying and worshiping God, and falling in love with God, and repenting. And just, I remember walking in between these tennis courts back and forth to school, sort of walking on air a little bit, how in love I was with God. And I don't know, I wanted to share that with people. I wanted to talk to people about it, and I think Fratzi Groza came to our church and sang Pokesta Tomule. And I was just like, like what are these giggling girls at a Michael Jackson concert in the 1980s in Bucharest? Fratzi Groza. I was just so enamored with that song and with the work that God was doing in my life. And I think that, that sort of out of that just came a desire to share, to talk to people about God, to want to get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just remind me, you came to the States at 14, you said?
I came. Yeah, when I was 14.
14. Okay, so this is
Yeah,
16. So the Frati Groza came to the U.S. church, which you are kind of aging yourself here. So, but I think a big part of the audience, maybe they'll know Frati Groza because they're probably even known somewhat today, but they were definitely well known, especially under the communist regime. They're some of the groups that you had that had the courage to go and praise God in Romania,
yeah,
and then the States, because we grew up on those tapes and
yeah,
that music.
yeah,
So essentially, you fall in love with sort of with God and serving Him, and okay. So lead us into how we got to Mission One, which Mission One, for those of you that don't know, um, you can explain. I don't want to botch it up, so I'll leave it at
yeah,
you have a really
yeah. Um,
tell us what Mission One is, and then tell us how it became part of it, or what part you had in it.
yeah, yeah. So, fast forward a couple of years,
18.
college.
So 18.
No, no, no. Yeah. So, finished high school, went to college, made a mess of things, experienced God's restorative power and grace in my life, began to see the world a little different. I'm 19, 20 now. And I'm trying to remember how I met George. I think I met him at a camp, or I don't remember. George Purach. He's
George
the one
Bush.
that sort of inspired. So the way churches in LA back in those days was a fairly clear delineation between denominations. The Baptist and the Pentecostals, right? And here comes this young man, George, and I don't remember how I met him exactly. But here comes this young man who grew up on the other side at the Pentecostal church. Of course, us young people did not have the same lenses or the same blinders as the older people, so we did not see this delineation as clearly as they saw it. For us, we're like, well, we're all young and Christian people. We want to hang out, we want to be together, and of course, George comes around and he has, I don't know, I guess, infuses me with this idea that young people should, we shouldn't be segregated by denominations. We are all one body. And it was this song. So then a musical group was brought together. There were other people connected, and I just sort of ended up having sang most of my life in choirs, and like, okay, well, I'm gonna be part of this singing group as well. And then we wanted to put this this conference together for young people, and it was a pretty big production. I think our first event, we rented out some big college campus with a dormitory.
So before we jump into that and what the conferences sort of became, I want to understand. So was the group sort of what became Mission One? Was that already happening, and who was leading it? And I just want to understand the dynamics.
I don't remember those details very well, Bora. That's the truth. I remember there were some people that I respected from my church that participated into it, like Cornel Burta and Adi Pope. There was also Brother Lee, Brother Lee. I'm forgetting his last name now. So there were some people that sort of I respected that were part of that, but it was really George that I got attached to.
Okay. So let's assume there was something already going on, but it's somewhere you met George along the way.
Yeah.
And George is sort of known in our community a little bit as a saint.
Yes.
I'm kidding. He's my friend, but I think I see him that way.
Of course. Yeah.
He can connect with people and not just leave it at that, but he goes way beyond that. So I could see. Yeah. So you're saying potentially somewhere you ran into him.
Yeah.
And you just kind of.
I clicked with the idea that we should not be segregated by denominations, that the youth should really be one. We're serving and worshiping the same God. So why have these, denominations? And then the idea came not from me. I don't know if it came from George. The idea came that we should have these events where we unite the youth across the churches and not care about denominations. I don't know how that idea, originated, but that's what we caught on to, and that's what we started working toward. And then the band, the band was formed, and then me and George and others started working hard to organize these events where the band would go and sing and lead young people into worship.
At what point did it become sort of known as Mission One, which is what we're talking about, and that's how I got to know you guys. You were already a pretty large group called Mission One that encompassed a band. That was the name of the band, but also way beyond that. So were you part of that, or was it already sort of called Mission One, or how did that come about? The name, I guess. Also. And what does the name mean?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I think I was there when we came up with the name, but I don't remember.
What does the name mean?
What is our number one mission? So we ended up organizing these events, right? And that's where I spend most of my time at the beginning, to organize, these events. And I was consumed with the passion for these events. And then we started connecting. Of course, George was connected everywhere. And some of the other leaders were connected to, different regions. So then we ended up, inviting Portland, Sacramento, San Francisco, Phoenix, and a bunch of churches from LA to come to these events. So, all of a sudden the event, was now probably, 1,000, 2,000 people, big from all over the West Coast.
So we should mention that this is prior to youth conventions and a
Yes.
lot of different conferences that are going on now. This was kind of groundbreaking at the time to have this type of an event. First of all, interconfessional, where you invite all the youth, not just Pentecost or Baptist or whatever. Right? I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
assume part of mission one is to be one,
Yes.
be one. But I didn't. So they got to that volume of like 2,000 people. That's pretty huge. So this was like a big production. I've never gotten to go to one, but definitely you guys are knowing. So to give you a little bit of backstory and the reason, I mean, maybe you're taking some of this for granted because you were part of it, but sort of here on the East Coast where I was at, I remember talking to some friends of mine that went to the West Coast and actually went to this conference. I said, "You have to go to this thing. It's like a huge movement on the West Coast." And it's called Mission One. And I'm like, in that time there was no Facebook to check it out. There was no like websites everywhere, so it was more like word of mouth. And I said, wow. And as I started looking a little bit into it, I find out some friends that I knew. I don't know if you know the Tifras, they're close friends of ours from Romania. I found out that they were sort of involved in it. Anyway, but I'm saying that on the East Coast, you guys are. This was definitely a known thing. It was like it was kind of told to me with like a lot of respect and kind of the thing to be at. I'm just letting you know that's the way it came across to us.
Um, that's cool to hear. Uh, it wasn't apparent to me back then how much of a magnet this event was, because we were just busy working, and people wanted to come, and I was surprised. Wow, you guys want to come too? That's
So
cool.
yeah, tell me first of all, sort of the overarching like sort of um, structure of the conference, and then one meaningful moment that you could potentially remember that like stuck in your head from this conference, from one of the
Yeah,
conferences, because there's quite a few, right?
yeah. I mean, uh, we did conferences for a few years, and the popularity of the conference grew more and more, and they got bigger and bigger. And we 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 definitely did not uh, did not please everybody, because some of the uh, older uh, church members that did not like this unity were, grumbling and not really happy about it. There was the song that we sang, "Let the Walls Fall Down,"
Mm-hmm.
and I remember being on stage, and the girl that was singing this main line. I remember the way she sang it, and the way she put her sort of heart and soul into it. She kind of like, "Let the walls fall down," and then she kind of like did this, "Let the walls fall down," you know. And I was I was kind of a backup singer, sort of just standing, behind her. And I just said, like, I remember when she was singing that, and she would do this with her fists. She broke down a wall, kind of like a superhero invincible wall that was just like, boom, it got broken down. And now the community is just, not, tethered to artificial, uh, you know you know groupings, or segregations, and the young people can come together, and in that togetherness we can worship God in a more authentic, free way, more so than we've done before. And that was meaningful, to bring young people together.
I mean, you could say that song has a lot of meaning. Like basically, let your guard down, let the word allow the word to come
Yeah,
in and stuff.
yeah.
That's another way to put it. But I could see the meaningful of the let the walls fall down, considering from what I know, you're trying to gather people from all kinds of denominations, which was unheard of at the time. And like you said, you probably got a lot of pushback. There's probably a whole
I
lot of
mean,
stories there.
yeah, our first event, at Riverside Baptist College. I think that's what it's called. I don't remember the name for sure. we had, many people, I don't know, maybe over 1,000 people in this big gym, auditorium with, bleachers, and the court was full of chairs. And we've been planning uh, this play, this, theatrical play that was, we worked so hard to write it. My friend, Donnie George, he was part of it, and we wanted to be as authentic as we can to show, I don't know, the sin that people, deal with as young people. So we wanted to be authentic about that. So we had we had these girls that were dressed with makeup that were probably not appropriate for church, and these guys with, tattoos and, fake, cigarettes in our hand or something, and we made this car made out of cardboard, and we're sitting there in this car on stage with our hand on the wheel, banging our heads at this song from Metallica, Enter Sandman, and we're banging our heads to the song, and oh my goodness, we're playing Metallica in our eagerness to be raw and to show, I guess, sin, authentically, which would make accepting grace and repentance authentically too. I think we took it too far, and then we had fairly large backlash from the audience, where some, people, were standing up and leaving, and you know lifted fists up to the stage. We couldn't hear what they were saying, but they were very angry that we played Metallica in church. And of course, that was our first big bang. Not a good start. Or maybe a good start, because now everyone's talking about the conference, But we've learned a lot from that experience, First, we've learned the people that really supported us when we were unpopular, like our parents, Pastor Daniel Brzee, Pastor Druhora, obviously Pastor Purach, dad's, George's dad, my dad. They stood by us when the community elders showed their fury against us, and I understand why. I'd probably do it differently this time if I had to do it over again. And then we spend the following weeks writing apology letters to all of these pastors from all of these, churches that, send their kids. But then we weren't done. That was just the beginning. I remember talking with George at some point during this time, and we said, I think these pastors are misunderstanding us. So let's live out our life in a way that they can understand that what's happening in our hearts is real and beautiful. So that what we ended up doing is we ended up serving with great passion and urgency a bunch of other events in the community that were not our events. We were the first ones to volunteer for anything, put up the chairs, and then slowly, these pastors, recognized us as, we're not just rebels, but we do have a desire to serve the community, and I think we won them over within, I don't know, within a year, so that the following events that we did, we had more and more of their support, and more of them sent their youth to our events.
That's interesting that you took that approach, and you could have said, you know what, I don't care what you guys think, we're gonna do our thing, and I don't. Instead, the attitude was, we want to show you that we're not a flash in the pan, as Charlie says, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
We're here to, if we messed up, we want to do better. I think that's really cool that you won them over, essentially, what you're saying, by serving.
Yeah.
I didn't know that aspect.
By quietly, like, I remember being this sort of a commando secret group of servants that would go and serve at various events, sort of unquestioning, no pretense. It's just, hey, we'll be there earlier, we'll set up the tables, you don't have to thank us or ask us or anything, we'll just go. And we've done this at many of these events, and then these pastors, I think, realized that, hey,
You guys are genuine.
yeah, there's a servanthood here that is authentic. That's the connection to charity cup,
Yeah.
because it is that perspective of serving made the connection to probably charity cup, which was on the East Coast.
And in a way, that's kind of how we met. I mean, it's interesting you brought that up, that willingness to help with no strings attached, because that's kind of how we got to know each other. But before we go into that chapter, if you would, just real quick, give me a snapshot of what did the conference look like? Like prayer,
Yeah.
like what were the main points in the conference?
Yeah. So we, so on Saturday, we would have some seminars or classes across various topics. We would have some pastor or some professor, come and maybe have I don't know, 6, 8 sessions, and uh, you know, the kids can choose to go to this one, choose to go to that one, choose to go to that one. This would be Saturday. We might have a Saturday park event, kind of a picnic with sports and stuff like that. Then we would have a Saturday night service with worship. We would, in the later years, we would try to invite some, I don't know, more known pastors, both Romanian and non-Romanians. Our events would grow bigger and bigger, so we would now go rent bigger and bigger, churches. And then at the end of Saturday night, which was sort of the finality of the weekend, we would make it a big point that on Sunday morning people go back to the churches and now take whatever passion and love they have gained from this worship experience, from worshiping God and loving people, to take that back into their own churches and show up there early and go serve in your church, and whatever good you've experienced here, now take it into your own local church and go serve there.
So basically, practice it out, not just
Yeah.
I would want to just give you a big head of information. And was the band? Sounds like you guys changed it up every time with speakers, but was the band a consistent part of the conference?
We've had other groups sing as well, that were amazing, praise and worship people. One name comes to mind is Brian Bettis. He was an amazing musician. He is an amazing musician. Our band, we practiced a lot, and we put our heart and soul into that as well. We also recorded an album, which was just amazing. The two young ladies in our group were the songwriters, and they did such an amazing job leading worship and coming up with beautiful worship songs, and we recorded them.
So, and then sort of since we're on this topic, I know some of the people that are involved in sort of the mission one sort of core team. Maybe you want to mention anybody or some of them?
Oh. Well, later, I mean, so it evolves through the years,
I'd say that's it would be a huge list.
Yeah, I would say John Dobra played a huge role in leading the band in later years. I think Adi Pope led the band at the beginning, but John, Dobra really led the band and the growth of the band through the years. Obviously, George was, I would say, the primary leader of that group. But early on, there were other leaders like Cornel Burta and Pastor Lee. Um,
Hmm. Okay. I kind of put
yeah,
you on the spot, so we can move on. I don't want you to
yeah,
miss people, and then we get
yeah,
people
yeah,
getting upset. So let's leave it at that. But obviously, there's an army of people. I mean, and I know this through various stories. That's why I know there's a
yeah.
lot of people.
I mean, any one, at any one point in time, we had a group of about 100 volunteers that would play a role in putting a weekend like this together.
So this was sort of not just a conference and a band; it was really a movement that was happening. And I don't know if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
guys realized that, and even us at that time, sort of in the charity cup world, we didn't realize what it was, but because it was always groups of people. It wasn't like a hierarchy. I assume there wasn't like a chart. It was just like,
no,
hey, I think what you guys are doing is really cool. We want to kind of we're ready to do the same and kind of follow. And that's really cool. That's organic. Yeah, I know you guys had a CD out because it's recently just used the music from your CD on some of the soccer tournament. Just right now, if you go to our Charity Cup Instagram page, they have some advertisements for the current event that's coming up in Detroit, and they're using the music on that, the background
that
music.
is so cool.
So that is
I'm
cool.
happy to hear that.
I know he's a huge fan of that CD, and I used to listen to it all the time. Yeah, so that's really cool. Cool. Let's kind of move forward. So at this time you were probably in college still, at sort of on the professional side of things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of my contribution in Mission One was not musically. I was always the backup singer. Most of my contribution was in organizing events and bringing people together to organize events.
Yeah.
So although I was on stage, I wasn't the musically talented one. But I, uh, I, I cared a great deal about people, and I wanted to uh, uh, inspire as many people as I can to come and serve. And I did that mostly by serving myself. And then people were attracted to that, and that was, I guess, what God had me do in that group. It wasn't necessarily the band, although I was in it. It was more the organizing and the events.
Okay.
I wanted to say that.
So essentially, you guys were probably into the Mission One for quite a few years before we ever met. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we started. I believe our first event was in '96. You know what? I forgot to mention. Woodyu, he was the drummer in Mission One, and I remember, apart being a talented, drummer, the way he would preach the gospel in church parking lots was just so amazing to see. I would love to see God would do that more.
That's really cool.
Anyways, okay,
I think what you're painting here is this was just the conference was just sort of like the physical things going on at the conference was really the spearhead, but there's like this whole movement behind it in that was unseen, like the parking lot, talking to people,
yeah,
like serving, like just the friendships that were probably built, right? That's why I said I think it was more of a movement. It wasn't just a conference or a
yeah.
band. It was
Yeah, we would church would be over, uh but no one would go home. We would be kicked out of the building, and then we just move into the parking lot,
yeah,
and then we'd be kicked out of the parking lot and take it to Denny's, and then we'd be kicked out of Denny's, and then we'd take it to the beach until the sunrise would happen. All along, there's multiple guys with the guitars, and with some, I don't know, banging on a box or something to be the drums, or the beat, and would be worshiping God to the wee hours of the morning. And this was a regular occurrence. And Claudio and others would stand up and share a word, and we would just an amazing amazing experience of connecting with God, uh, serving people, and learning to love people. And it's really during this phase of my life where I've learned some leadership skills that would later help me in my career, right? And make some of these friends that would end up being, anyways.
Right. End up being business partners, essentially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Moving on. So at one point, like I said, I don't know, maybe this was like, you sounds like we met somewhere in the 2000. Right. It was
Yeah.
2000. So you guys are already doing this for about 3 or 4 years. Ironically, on the sort of the Charity Cup side, and we'll have another, discussion on that. But we started somewhere in 97, we were going on mission trips, etc. And then the soccer tournament started in 97. I don't want to dive deep into that right now, but essentially I do want to share this experience because it ties into your story, into what you just mentioned earlier, because you said you're kind of ready to serve. And okay, so I remember when we first wanted to do a tournament. So as I mentioned, at a church parking lot discussion, somebody brought up Mission One, and he said, "You guys got to meet up with these guys. They're amazing people. They're awesome. Blah blah blah." So I always had that in my mind. And I remember your band came to a church in Detroit, an opening of a church. They were inaugurating a new building, and I remember I went up to George, and at the time I didn't know George, but I remember asking him. So you guys were like the main event at the church. It was the band. It was a big deal. A lot of people came to at the inauguration of the church. So, you were definitely probably one of the main center of attention at that time as the band. But I remember in my mind, I heard a lot of cool things, and I said, "Hey, I wanna know if these guys are just a band, or they're really interested in serving God and not only on stage, And I went up to George and I told George, not even knowing him, I said, "Hey, listen, there's this baptism happening sort of between the two services at your church that you're at right now in Detroit that you're invited to. Would you be interested in coming to the small church that have a baptism?" There are a lot of my friends, they're a really small church. They would like fall over backwards if you guys came and sing and like surprise them. And it was more like a test in my mind than, because it was in Canada, it would have been way complicated to do this. And I also said, by the way, you can't use your instruments because this is a small church. They don't have that. They're probably not going to be okay with drums. Would you still be okay to come? And to my amazement, George said, "Yeah, absolutely." And we were like talking about the logistics of it. And then ended up that you guys couldn't come. The church wanted to take you guys out to lunch and you couldn't. But I always remember that the willingness was there to come. Despite the fact, anybody could have just blown me off and said, "Who the heck are you? How could you ask me such a thing?" But that was not the discussion that we ended up having. It was very willingness, and yeah, I'm gonna talk to the team. We're gonna do this, Anyway, the other experience that ties into what you just mentioned was when we did organize the tournament in LA. We invited you guys to come and sing at the opening, the national anthem, and I'm like, okay, great, they're gonna come. Not only did you guys come to sing, but you brought all your equipment, all the audio. I remember the Frati Cifra with their truck pulling up. Alnori, where do I put this? And then beyond that, I'm like, okay, so that's cool. So they gave us the equipment to use. They're gonna sing. That's really awesome. I mean, that would be amazing if that happened. But then something else happened that we didn't expect. You guys said, "Hey, where can we help?" Like throughout the whole day. We're like, "Are you kidding me? You brought an army of volunteers." I remember I think you got your first assignment from Herdian. We'll bring Herdian into this discussion later, but can you tell me what was that assignment, if you remember?
Well, Danny came with a stack of papers detailing the role of field manager, and he wanted me to be a field manager. So pretty much my role was to take care of everything that happens on that field.
Yeah.
And I cared a great deal about every little aspect of that field. If there's trash, and if there's bags, or if there's what teams are playing, if the refs are ready. So I went all out to make sure that this field was handled through and through in every single way. So I brought in more people to help me with the field, and everything that happened on this field ran smoothly. The
That's
refs were
exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember the morning of when I think he was briefing me on this. there was a lot of people there. There was a lot of chaos, right? Because this is a new event. We didn't know each other. Herdian
So
didn't know you.
funny.
I didn't know you. I might have had some conversation with like George, like I said in the parking, but that's about all we knew of you guys. And then he handed this. I think I remember this. What do you call it? Board with paper on. What is that called?
A clipboard.
A clipboard, if I remember correctly. And here you go, go. And I
Yeah.
remember this at the end of the whole day, the whole night. It was already dark out. You come and I don't know. It seems to me this moment stuck in my mind. Maybe it's that it's made up in my mind, but like you came back with the board and you handed it back to him and said, "Here you go."
Yeah. That didn't just happen then. That's really started happening in 96 after we had that big opening night where we wanted to, where we had a great desire to serve God and serve his people. And that permeated through every aspect of what we did. So it wasn't, it wasn't that God has awakened us some desire to, I don't know, to do something special for Charity Cup at that event. It was just our standard operating procedure that if we're going to be part of an event, we're going to serve the best of us to the best of our abilities, all the way to the very, very end, in every way possible. So then, when this opportunity came up to serve with you guys, it was like, okay, it's already built into our habits. It's already built into our idea, and it just happened naturally. So you're making a big deal of this moment right now, but it wasn't a big deal for us then because it was just the way we did things.
Yeah. So I'm just giving a testimony to what you told me earlier, and now it
Yeah.
ties together. I didn't know that was sort of like a set purpose. So now it ties. I mean, now it makes sense to me why that day happened in that way. That's exactly. I want to testify to that.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happened. Everybody started plugging in, and we're like, we don't know these people. They don't know us anything. That's really cool that they're doing this, and it's way beyond what we expected. It wasn't like, here's the board back, I'm done, which happened a lot, by the way. That was our experience. Like halfway through the day, you would not find that person because he left the board somewhere and he left, and he had to go to the bathroom, and then eventually went home. And this was a very different, mind-blowing experience. To the fact that, at the end of the night, we're all there cleaning up. I'm like, they're cleaning up the trash. Like, they don't have to do this. I mean, they could just do the nice work, like the managing people. They don't have to clean up. That could, I would have been super understanding if you were like, here, we're good, we refed, or you managed the referees, we sang, we don't have to clean up, we're going to leave now. But that's not what happened.
I would say that setup and tear down was a specialty.
Yeah. I remember Danny Cifra, like putting the speakers in his white truck, the Nissan that he had, and taking him down, putting him back up. And so that really left a mark on me. And I'm just testifying to what you guys.
Yeah. Having been on stage and off of stage, I could tell you that in our mind, the setup, the tear down, being on stage, being off stage was all the same. No difference at all. And I think other younger people in our generation wanted to be part of that.
Yeah. I think you inspired a lot of people to do amazing, good things, to serve. And Kat, I want to bring something up right now that, this could tie in at any moment in our conversation, but as I was watching some of the Charlie videos recently because of his recent death, where we're recording this, he was kind of talking in a way that I remember us talking. Like, basically, when I watched some of his podcasts, it felt like he was just sitting around with a group of friends and reminiscing in a very natural way. And I think those moments happen many, many times with you and some of the team. And I kind of identified with that. And that's another reason why I really liked Charlie, was that he was an inspirer of people and really just doing natural, normal things like with friends. And I think that's what we ended up doing together, was just having a great time serving and bringing people to God or leading people towards God. But it was in a fun atmosphere. And anyway, okay, maybe I'm diverging a little bit, so I don't want to do that. But you, I believe you had a big part in that. The ethos of the team that eventually came together was was beyond just physical doing. It was this friendship and deep conversations. And I think you were like a big part of that.
I remember when I was, I don't know, 18 or something. I remember reading this management book by John Maxwell, 22 Rules of a Leader or something like that. I don't know why I was inspired to read that book at that age because I wasn't doing anything, you know? I remember one of the rules in there was it's not about you, it's about, you know, the person next to you. It sort of inspired, again, this idea of serving others. So, having fallen in love with God when I was 16, having read this book that talked about how to serve, how true leaders serve, having experienced God's grace in my life in the early college life, and then having seen George and others exemplify such a beautiful, authentic love of how actually God loves people, it was easy to follow along.
Yeah. Kat, so let's move on to the sort of the next chapter. Well, like I said, we're kind of into the Charity Cup chapter because that became a big part of probably your life eventually, or what you were starting to get involved in. So a lot of people may not know this whole entire history. So in a way, Charity Cup and Mission One sort of began to slowly do some things together. Like I remember when in 2000 we went on our sort of joint mission trip. We met in Colorado in the wintertime. And in the
Breckenridge.
right, yeah, that's right. And the whole point of that is just to see if we can gel our two teams together and maybe plan a mission trip together in the next summer. And ironically, I mean, not ironically, but that actually worked very well. Like, not only do we gel and we had a ton of fun and prayer and worship at this retreat, which was apparently your specialty. We didn't know, but planning stuff like that. Eventually, we ended up going on a mission trip the next summer. I think that's what really tied our relationship together. Yeah, and you're a big part of that. He was anyway. That's a whole story in itself. Some of the adventures that happened on the first mission trip. But the point is, we did it together. You guys came along. You worshipped. You brought the worship team, the whole entire worship team, and anyway, that's how we started sort of the first mission trip, and then 2, 3, and now we're at number 25. And eventually, like, if I'm saying this correctly, the sort of the two teams began to kind of naturally kind of merge towards each other. Somewhere along the lines, I don't know what year, we said, hey, let's form a board of directors together, and that's where you, George, and Herdian and I, and then Adi eventually came, and that's how we formed sort of the first board. And there's some others there, but you guys sort of represented the sort of the Mission One branch, and Herdian and I sort of represented the Charity Cup branch, and kind of merged us together. And I remember we did have long discussions about what are we going to call this? Do we call it Mission One? Do we call it Charity Cup? And you were always, you're always the more gracious one. I remember some very, very good deep discussions around this topic, but it was awesome. And anyway, we ended up deciding to go with Charity Cup, but it could have gone both ways. Am I describing that correctly?
You are.
So, Kat, now we're into those years, and maybe tell us a few things.
It was cool how you and Hadan officially invited George and I and others too. I believe John, and Lavi and Anka were part of the group at the time. Officially invited us with letters. I thought that was
probably Herdian.
such a cool touch.
That was Herdian's idea, probably.
Nice move.
It was ChatGPT, man. It was all ChatGPT. Herdian, write this letter.
Yeah, that was very inspired, right? Because he made it official. He put a sort of a seal on this. He made the call a commission. He made the call official. He made our next, whatever, decades that we're going to spend doing this stuff sort of have a clear beginning and a call and a seal. Like, this is it, guys. Boom. The clarity and the finality of that moment was beautiful.
Yeah, no, I don't think we knew what we were embarking on. I think in some ways we were naive. We thought, hey, we'll have a few good years doing this. Who knows? At least we didn't know. Maybe anyway, and here we are 25 plus years into this. But anyway, Kat, so along the years here, you kind of had many different roles. I know some of the roles you held within Charity Cup, which like I said, it wasn't just events. It was there's a lot more to this that a lot of people contributed behind the scenes. But if you were to some of the roles that were sort of forefront that people sort of visually saw, you're I know you organized a tournament. Um, one of the biggest ones in I believe is in Phoenix. You organized that tournament with Feli. I think helped you at the time.
Yeah.
Then you also led one of the mission trips. Two mission trips.
04 and 05.
0405, which was very well planned and methodically put together. But I remember the one in Phoenix where you get the tournament. I believe I remember we all had name tags.
Yeah.
It was a green background photo, and I can't remember what the graphic was, but is that was the year, right?
I don't. I mean, we had many, many type of events. I remember working with another friend of mine who was very artistically inclined. His name was Claudiu Talos. If you remember Fratello Talos from Bucharest, he was his son. Yeah. And we worked with him to come up with I don't know, this square rock with the chisel and the hammer, and you hit on the edges of it, and then inside of it it's a soccer ball, kind of sort of depicting this idea that God can use soccer to bring people together for his kingdom. And then we took a picture of that. We create posters of that. I remember just creating countless and countless different ticket and posters and flyers that we would give out to people to come with many different designs, T-shirts and so on and so forth. So, yeah,
I
would
have a
still
picture
say
of that in my office.
you do.
Yeah, I have it hung at my office. That one of the posters that I think comes from that tournament.
Yeah, yeah. So we wanted to inspire people, in every way, right? By serving ourselves, by being as professional as we can, by with art and beauty, with great speaking and great worship, great food. So we employed, there were 100 volunteers, and different people had different gifts and different ideas, and we wanted to be the place where they can exercise all their gifts. So we managed by God's grace to uh, organize these events where everyone can participate with whatever gift that they wanted to bring to the table.
Yeah, exactly. That is really what it was about.
Yeah.
In some ways, it was really about the volunteers, almost more than the players. But I don't think I think we didn't understand that either till much later on. It was about igniting a passion to serve. I know that's one of your coined phrases because it's what we're doing. And it was a cycle. They would come, volunteer at a tournament because it was in the US, it was more visible, but we were trying to get them to come with us on a mission trip and experience that amazing. Okay. Kat, tell us maybe a few of the moments that you might remember sort of from this sort of the Trade Cup years, and then I want to kind of segue into the professional life because I think it starts to come in about this time.
It is to Cherry Cup that I found my wife. So that's cool. And so many people can say the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
My the best relationships in my life are rooted into that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'll help you. I'll help you with one that sticks to me. I remember where you were in charge of the media project one year in Moldova when we went on one of the trips, and I think it was Tirnova, a lot of people. There was like 250 people probably with us. Crazy responsibility. I'm glad we were so naive to do something like that. But anyway, I remember you were in charge of the media, and we were trying to build a church in one of the villages we were at, and we wanted to produce a video to explain to people back home what we're trying to do. And you asked me to say a few words on the video, and it's probably more I shot my como se dice, more mechanical about it. And okay, and I remember you stopped me, and you explained to me how to create this moment that people through the video need to feel. And I think we still have that video somewhere, but I think that's one of the times when I'd say I kind of learned the power of media and the power that it could have if done right. And that was your contribution. I remember when we were walking through the ruins and you're saying, hey, I want you to touch this rock because the building was demolished. We were trying to build it back up and help people understand and kind of bring them into this place. And you were very passionate about it. And you kind of showed me a little bit of what to do. And that was an amazing, because I think we have a film somewhere.
This is the building that will soon be the church in Ternova.
This has so much potential. I mean, there's so many different rooms we have here. I imagine a cafe in this room, while in this room there's somebody coming and there's a library and people can sit down and have a little Bible study around a table full of books. You walk over to this room and maybe there's some computers over here that people can come and maybe get help with the internet and get taught how to do computers. We ended up building that church, and I'm sure that tool was a big part of that. But that was the one I remember. One of the things I definitely remember, like, Bora, not like that. You gotta put more passion. And when you put your hand on this rock, like, pause and look around and let people feel the gravity of the moment. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I do. We were having a great time, and you're an easy guy to have a great time with. So
Thanks, Gad. Yeah, we always have a great time, and we always have goofy lines, and we could probably sit here and reminisce for hours. But that was one of the cool experiences that I remember on the field, if you would, on the mission field. Anyway.
There is a cumulative moment that I had on our first or second trip to Ternova. That I would say it was cumulative in the sense that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of this organization and planning and, these experiences and I was taking pictures and I remember that, I don't know, I was taking pictures of one of our groups, right? And behind them was this group of 25 people from Ternova, the local villagers that have given their life to Christ during these events, and they're standing behind this group that I'm taking a picture of. And I remember, putting the camera, my viewfinder on to look at this group, but behind them was this group of 25 souls that have given their life to Christ that were, villagers that now became the church. And I remember thinking, wow, sort of the gravity of the situation. Here's a bunch of yahoos who organized and did and sort of played Christian ministry, if I can say it like that. We sort of played with it. We sort of tried. We sort of had our fun. A bunch of yahoos. And then here is the result of it in the background of this picture that I'm taking. The result of it is, wow, 25 souls that now have an actual local building, local church with a pastor, paid pastor, that this group of people now have become part of the eternal church. that that lives through eternity, that has a that has a root and life into Christ's sacrifice on the cross, and now can live for eternity as a church, the sort of fearsome army with banners, the church. So the accumulation of all of these things,
not just a social club, but a church where people can come, be healed, be taught, have fellowship, and meet Christ every time. This place to be a refuge, a light in this dark village. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of sin in this place. And this place right here, this church, this empty building right now, will be the body of Christ. And one day, many believers from here will go to heaven. That's what we want this place to be.
People have come and gone. People have given their life to Christ in our events or not, but never has been the case that you have these 25 souls that are now a unit, a local church that is now growing in Turnova. And I remember having this experience as I noticed them behind in my viewfinder as I'm taking pictures of another group. I was like, wow, this is a big deal. It's a big moment. I feel like God allowed me to enjoy that moment sort of spontaneously, unplanned. I didn't talk to anyone about it. No one pointed it out to me. Just as I'm looking through my viewfinder in the background, as I'm changing the focus on my camera so that I can focus on the right group, back was this group of people that are now part of the eternal church. That really is God's work through a bunch of yahoos, bunch of young kids. That was amazing for me to actually to participate in that.
And I think that's emblematic of what in a way what we wanted to achieve as Charity Cop and sort of Mission One sort of joined together. It was always about that. That's what making life count is about. I think you captured it really well. I'd say another important aspect, Kat, that I think you always emphasized within Charity Cop was the people that are gonna hear the word of God is a big part of this ministry, but they're also the people that are going to do this work. The yahoos that you mentioned, those guys are coming back changed. And I think generations are going to be changed because of that.
Yeah, and I believe we can see that now looking back, where we hear random stories of the work that God has done in people's lives through these events.
Yeah, praise God. I think another thing that is taken lightly and we laugh at it, there are a lot of marriages that came out of people meeting within sort of the Charity Cup world, if you would.
Yeah.
Hundreds. I was talking to Adi and we're trying to just reminisce on a few of the relationships, but there's probably hundreds. Hundreds. And like I said, it's kind of a funny, we laugh at it, but really this is families that have this eternal perspective, and for generations they could pass it on to their kids. And some of them we don't know. There may be some American church serving, but I believe anyway. I think a whole entire generation of American Romanians were impacted by some of the work and some of the mission trips that you help lead.
Yeah,
I want to also highlight another thing that I remember, and it's not on a mission field, but I remember the board meetings that we had and some of the early stages of establishing what Charity Cup is about, and some of the board of director meetings where we were trying to put together the vision, the mission, and you and I were having heavy discussions along with the people that are there. But you were very, very passionate about that, and I think a lot of the words that ended up becoming our mission statement are credited to you. Do you have any thoughts on that? Other than that you're stubborn.
yeah, we I've learned from reading C.S. Lewis that words matter a great deal. So I cared a great deal about words that express a reality that I think we were all living. And I think we all we all contributed to those words. It wasn't just me, but there were a couple of things that I cared about, and yeah, I don't want to say more than that. We
Yeah.
argued a lot, but by the grace of God, I think we came up with inspired words that were lived out from across multiple generations.
Yeah, and Kat, I want to mention that also in this sort of sparring that you and others are doing in this, when someone, we got very involved in that discussion. We always came together at the end, and we would go out or get the lunch after. It would like never,
Yeah.
some of the heated debates and passionate debates about what word should be there, what shouldn't be there. We'd always come together and. Anyway, my point is that it was always about producing the best quality outcome versus like personal, whose word should be in there. And
Yeah.
I think that I learned that with you. It's okay to have differences of opinion and like passionately debate it without like taking it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, words, I guess, that expressed a reality that we experienced, that God allowed us to experience, refined by endless hours of discussions that ended up, I believe, that I believe ended up inspiring others.
Absolutely. Cool. So Kat, somehow this kind of ties into.
By the way, these ideas have come as a result of other books that I've read by Jim Collins. Good to Great played a big role in figuring out our mission statement for Charity Cup. And I remember spending quite a bit of time reading that book and taking it to heart and understanding the mechanics of how our ministry works and how we apply these ideas we've learned from Good to Great into how our ministry works. So we've spent a lot of time collaborating and expanding those ideas and applying them to our ministry. And I think our ministry really comes from that. Our ministry statements come from that.
Absolutely. I remember there was a time when I would say we dove pretty deeply into the Good to Great book. We even had sort of a ministry-wide study that we did on those ideas. And I think some of his ideas were stemmed biblically. I don't know if he was a Christian himself, but yeah, definitely. I remember that. That's a very good point that you brought up. Yeah. So, Kat, somewhere in this range of time here, you kind of stems the professional start on your professional life. Can you bring us into that world a little bit since we're getting to that section?
Yeah. God has blessed me to have a career in doing analytics since my early 20s. And because of that career, I was able to travel and live in different places in the United States. And of course, the foundation of my life was my family and these beautiful friendships that I had from the ministry work that we've done over all these years. And I moved to Chicago to lead analytics at Sears, and then I convinced her then to move to Chicago so we could do analytics together. And then was laid off from Sears, and then Dan and I started a analytics business that grew over the next 8 years fairly nicely. We ended up selling that, and now him and I started another one.
So I know that's quite a
And
short synopsis, but I wanted to ask you something, maybe debunk it in my head. Maybe I'm wrong. But I remember early on, as we were having board meetings, let's say in Detroit, you, Herdian, and somebody else that was a partner at one point of you guys would have these sidebars. Like we'd go out to eat, take a break, and then he would show up and you guys would go off and chat on your own, the three of you. And I believe, in my head at least, that's sort of the early stages of what later became a analytics company and whatever. You guys are on. Do you want to say anything about that? Do you want to debunk that in my head or not?
I mean, I guess as with any startup, you could recount multiple starts. Depending on how far you want to go back. What's the legal start of a company? What's the idea start of a company? What's the bringing people together start? So there's multiple starts.
Yeah, right.
And
so what I mean is this, obviously, I know you guys probably started a few companies, but one kind of rolled into the other, I assume.
Yeah.
But the idea of coming together with these friends, that's why I think in some ways it ties.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had pretty nice careers working for big companies. And then outside of work, I would have all of these amazing experiences doing ministry work and charity cup and traveling. But there was always a separation between these two worlds. And at some point, I was like, man, why can't these two worlds be together, be one? Why can't the meaning and the purpose that I experience in my ministry in charity cup, I can carry that over into my professional world? Because these two worlds are separate. I have to be here to make money, but I really want to be here. So, anyways, at some point, I was like, well, what if I managed somehow to end up working with friends? And that's when the idea came to my head to ask Dan to move to Chicago. Because if he comes to Chicago, then we can be working together, and then we can start something on our own. Therefore, bringing together these two worlds, this sort of purposeful, meaningful world of doing and serving, in charity cup and ministry, and the world of making money and having to earn a living to take care of my family. And then by the grace of God, we were able to do that. The interesting thing about that is that whatever meaningful purpose and beauty and joy and fun that we had in charity cup now got transferred into our company Cognetic, and ended up being a blessing to our employees and all of our clients, because we operated Cognetic with the same principles that we lived out in charity cup, the way we serve people. This idea of servant leadership was absolutely through and through foundational to our company. And of course, as it was in the church ministry, many people were attracted to that. So we were able to attract really good talent and keep good talent. We were able to attract big clients and keep good clients because of the same idea, this sort of servant leadership.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about that, because I remember I went to visit you guys and I was there at the company when you guys had the company. So first of all, the company made it pretty far. The startup went into the millions.
Oh, hold on, but I want to also say a story real quick.
Okay.
When I was let go from Sears, when I was laid off from Sears, I remember talking to you about it, and I was like, well, I guess I gotta go get another job now and and go back to LA. But you planted a seed in my head. You're like, hey, you shouldn't just go get a job. You should start an agency. That idea, I believe you told me and Herden that idea, and I think that idea played a role in us taking specific action to start our company. So you played a role into that, Bora.
Wow. So I do remember having a conversation. If you brought this up, I remember you were saying that they let you go, but they want to bring you back on a contract.
Yeah.
And to me, like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. They let you go, but they want to bring you on a contract basis. Okay, but then if they want you that bad, that means there's something there. I remember thinking that. So I'm like, why don't you do that with other companies then? Instead of going to work for one guy, one person, if they're willing to pay all this money to bring you I remember having that discussion and bringing that up. Like, Then go do this a bunch of other times with other companies. Why be stuck at one place? Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I do remember that conversation, but I didn't know you're going to bring that up. That's
Well,
cool.
yeah, because that played a role in helping me and Herdan reframe that moment in our life.
Praise God. Praise God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was always, so business was dear to my mind, my heart as well, because it's creative, and our discussions many times were about business ideas, even when we're like in the board meeting, like when we took a side break, it was anyway. So to me, it was a natural progression in that world, but I think you guys ended up bringing some of these principles, and I always had that in mind, but you actually did it. When I went to your company that actually started taking off, and it took off pretty well into the millions. I'm not going to say, if you don't want me to, I don't know what your book of business was, but into the millions. I remember going there, and you had acquired all these people. They're essentially friends from back in the day, sort of from within Charity Cup, and some weren't from within Charity Cup. But when I went there, it definitely felt like a family. And it did reminisce of all the, mission trips we did together, this sort of ethos of let's do life together.
Yeah.
I remember you guys had these games in sort of the main lobby, and coffee, and doing Bible study together. And I'm like, what am I missing out on here?
Yeah, I guess we had a lot of a lot of learnings from Chiricop on what works, what gets people excited. You know, a job is a job, but at the end of the day, you want that job to be meaningful. And we were purposeful and missional in everything that we did, and people gravitated to that. And it ended up, now that we started another company, most people that we've had in the first company are excited to work with us again. That's because they understand the heart of the sort of servant leadership, that we care about people like we did in Cherry Cup.
Ken, I remember I had a conversation either with you or Herdian, but you were telling me, hey, some of the people that are working here kind of pointed out some people were actually witnessing to them. I'm witnessing some of the clients that I'm pitching to or talking to or whatever. And I remember that was, to me, that's amazing. I'm like, way to play out your faith in the real world, when the truth is you could have just forgot all about all that and said, hey, I made it, we're making great money, forget about all that. And I think that's what's really meaningful here, because to me, that's the real test. Like, what happens in those successful times, and sometimes in the bad times. But in the bad times, you kind of get closer to God naturally, right? But in the good times is where the true test is. The true, right? So I feel like you guys, kind of kept the eternal things in mind.
Yeah, we did. And if you can tie this whole story together, it's the same feeling that I had when I was 16 years old and fell in love with God. It's the same feeling that I had, backstage at Mission One. The same feeling that I had when, uh, you know, um, you know, uh, when we did all of these amazing trips, and the same feeling that I had when I was looking to that viewfinder and saw the church. It's a love for Christ and a love for the things that Christ loves, which is people.
Amen.
And it's the same feeling. It's the same, comes from the same place. There is no distinction, between it. Life is lived a certain way, and whatever we end up doing with our hands and with our time is different from hour to hour, year to year, season to season. But that feeling of serving God and love, and loving what Christ loves it's the same.
Yeah. You guys ended up having a pretty successful exit, right? That's pretty rare in the Romanian community. So in the millions, I don't know exactly. You never told me. It's not disclosed, and it doesn't matter. It's in the millions, and I think it's very successful. And I remember one of the first things you sort of did as a team we went to Tanzania together, right? And this was sort of maybe, yeah, kind of after the whole exit kind of ended up. And I remember you guys were really blessing those people with kind of some of the proceeds. I was the beneficiary of that, and the people there were major beneficiaries. I mean, so you kind of ended up using some of the things that God gave you, and I think it's also ties into the story, because you didn't have to do that. You could have taken a nice fancy vacation and just do that and not have to come to Tanzania out of all places and sleep on the floor in your tent. It was the funniest thing. You had down your tent on the floor,
Yeah.
but you know, enduring some of the bugs, but you guys came to serve. And I remember one thing that you and headed down and we went shopping, and the feeling I got was, you know, we're gonna go and buy the whole freaking store. Anyway, that was an awesome experience that you ended up sort of coming
So
back and
cool.
giving and not wasting, and sort of coming back to, I don't know, to Charity Cup, because you did step out for a little while you were building this company. But dude, I think it was amazing going to the store with Jeremiah and buying up washing machines, and you guys going, "Well, just one? Why this cheap brand? Let's buy this nice brand. Why don't we buy this thing too? You want? Could you use it? Could the kids use it? Could they wash more clothes and not have to wash them by hands?" And almost like you know, and not unlimited budget, but it felt a little bit like that. Like, you know, you really blessed those people there, and you continue to bless. And I think, um, you know, I just want to mention that because
Yeah.
I want people to be inspired by that, because that's what it's all about. I mean, making your life count, and not just it's in the good and the bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So currently, you guys started a new company. Sounds like it's going great. Sounds like you
By
want
the
to bring
grace
some
of
of the
God,
same
yes.
values.
Yeah.
So as sort of we kind of wrap this up, I guess. If you're to give advice to somebody how to sort of live out this making your life count, what would you say? What are some of the steps they should take, or advice that you have?
So a couple of things that had a huge impact in my life. We're really gonna, repeat some of the things that I've said, but um, I have fallen in love with Christ, and He has captured my heart and soul, and 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 loving Christ and understanding His love for me wasn't religion, and I think that's the foundation of all of it. He captured my heart, and I've seen that the way He has loved me as a perfect father when I have made a mess of my life, and experienced that grace, and then wonder, well, if God loves me like this, He loves everyone else like this. Having put some more meat on those bones by reading C.S. Lewis and understanding the value of people, um, the eternal lasting value of people, and loving Christ and loving what He loves, I wanted to build a life around that. And God has blessed me. God has blessed me to build a life around that. So I guess if there was some advice, I would say um, connect to God, and in that connection, um, understand the grace and love He has for you, and He will impress upon you the love that He has for you and other people, and then He's gonna get you engaged in in a in a in a life well lived, day by day, serving others.
Well said, well said. So well said. So I think we kind of ended where we began. C.S. Lewis and sort of God taking a hold of your heart, and I think that's what it's about. That's definitely what we think making a life count is. And
Yeah.
yeah, Thank you, Kat, for this amazing time together. I really appreciate it. I hope our viewers are inspired by the story. And if you have any questions for Kat, we'll put a link to his contact info in the description. I don't know if you have social media stuff, but we'll find your email or something. We'll put it in the description. Do you have any final words to our audience?
No, thank you, Bora, for putting this together. Help me reminisce on God's grace in my life and in others. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. And to the audience, thank you again for following us on this episode. Thank you for being with us. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll hope to see you next time on another episode of Making Your Life Count. God bless. Have a great day.